When the stars whispered Earth's name again in the silent dark beyond the map stars, aboard the patrol vessel Spyhawk, Commander Kale Vaughn stared into the black void. His ship glided quietly along Sector E9, a cold stretch of space known as the Forgotten Spiral, an ancient route left behind after the Krell Imperium absorbed the outer colonies. No one ever patrolled here. Nothing lived here. Nothing ever should. Then the whisper came, a single blip on long-range subspace scanners. Not a distress signal, not a friendly ping. Something deeper, older, a coded frequency. Unreadable, encrypted in a language the Krell hadn't seen for millennia. It pulsed only once. Kel's yellow-scaled brow furrowed. He leaned forward, voice sharp but steady. Scan that signal again. Full spectrum. His communications officer, Lyra, worked swiftly. She was a quiet technician, with sharp eyes and faster fingers. Rescanning, Commander. The frequency is not Krell. It's organic, carbon-based imprint. Kale stood, heart thudding in a way he hadn't felt since his military trial flights. Is it Xantech? Lyra shook her head slowly. No, it's older, predating Xen expansion. This pattern doesn't match anything in our archives, except, she stopped. Kale turned to her. Except what? Lyra hesitated. Then she tapped the console. A faded seal appeared on the screen, barely reconstructed from corrupted data. Human emblem, stylized earth glyphs circling a planet. The words, rough translated, "We endure." Kel's breath caught. That's impossible, he muttered. The crew behind him went still. Even the ship seemed to pause. Earth had died 40,000 years ago. The last known human fleet vanished into the cosmic shadows before Krell's civilization had even mastered interstellar war. Humanity, they were told, had been too emotional, too chaotic, too flawed to survive. But now, the stars whispered again. Kale, move quickly, plot an intercept course. Lock on to the signal's origin point. Lyra blinked. Commander, that's deep into Dead Zone 7, forbidden space. I don't care. This could change everything. The ship turned. As Spyhawk descended into Dead Zone 7, the crew passed derelict hulks of ancient stockcraft drifting like forgotten bones in a graveyard. One of them, a massive, obsidian-colored vessel, drifted at the signal's source. It was shaped like a dagger, but built like a cathedral. No visible thrusters, no lights. Yet it was unmistakably human in design. Kel's voice dropped. Prepare a boarding team. The bridge remained silent. Now, he said. Firmer. 5 hours later, Kale stood in a pressurized exosuit inside the mysterious vessel's hull. His boots clanged against a metallic floor that hummed faintly beneath him, like a beast in hibernation. The air inside wasn't stale, but was filtered. Active, alive. This ship wasn't dead. He approached what looked like a terminal, except it pulsed with light in perfect hexagonal patterns, responding to his presence. Before he could call Lyra for analysis, a voice filled the chamber. It wasn't Krell. It wasn't any known language. But Kale understood it. We are the children of the ash. The chamber lit up. Earth is gone. But we are not. We have endured. And now, we remember. Kale stumbled backward, heart hammering. The voice felt ancient, but not broken, not vengeful. Just awake. Behind him, his second in command, Tovar, whispered, Commander, we need to leave now. Kale shook his head. No, this is a message, not a trap. A moment later, the lights shifted. A holographic projection filled the room. It showed Earth not as a burning ruin, but in its final moment. Cities hollowed, skies fractured. Fleets launching into the void, families crying. Soldiers embracing. It wasn't a warning. It was a farewell. Then came the final image, thousands of cryopods, floating into space, scattered like seeds across a galactic wind. Is this where they went? Tovar asked quietly. Kel's mind spun. It must be. This isn't a ghost ship. It's a memory capsule. A message to the galaxy. But why now? Why send it now? Lyra's voice came through the comms, her voice shaking. Kale turned back to the pulsing console. The final message appeared. Clear, simple, brutal, we're awake. The signal pulsed again louder, stronger, and vanished into deep space, bouncing across communication relays across dozens of systems. Kale felt his chest tighten. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a declaration, a warning, and possibly a reckoning. As the Krell ship pulled back, the human vessel began to move, slowly, deliberately. Its engines hummed, silent but unmistakable. They had been asleep, waiting, watching. Now, after 40,000 years, they were no longer silent. Humanity had returned. The signal that shook Empire's signal reached farther than Commander Kael'van imagined. Within hours of transmission, it had bounced across dormant satellites, ghost relays, and abandoned war terminals, many of which hadn't seen energy flow in thousands of years. From forgotten border worlds to powerful central systems, the message spread like wildfire. We are awake. In the vast golden halls of the Krell Imperium's central nexus, High Strategist Veron stared at the holographic feed in silence. Around him, a dozen generals whispered anxiously, their clawed hands twitching as fear bloomed behind their disciplined faces. It's human, Veron finally said. His voice was cold, precise. There is no doubt now, but Earth was destroyed. One general protested, wiped clean during the Age of Purge. They were extinct before our first hive engines even launched. Veron's eyes narrowed. Extinct creatures do not send messages. And they certainly don't move dead ships through the heart of our silent zones. Are they declaring war? No, he paused. They're declaring return. A murmur echoed through the chamber. Every Krell in the room had heard the ancient myths of the Terran Imperium that had once ruled star systems, of cities built on moons, of ships the size of small planets. But myths could be reshaped, rewritten by history, pride, and fear. Still, even myths had teeth. Veron stood and walked toward the star map hovering above the central table. With a flick of his clawed hand, he zoomed in on the forgotten spiral. The ship's last known location blinked in red. Dispatch Shadow Scouts. We need to confirm the vessel's trajectory. Shall we prepare for conflict? Veron shook his head. Not yet. First, we understand them. And far beyond the Imperium's walls, in the storm-covered world of Juno's Fall, someone else had also received the message. A scavenger, a survivor. Her name was Orrery's Win. She crouched among the bones of a wrecked carrier, scavenging copper, wires from rusted conduits. Her breath fogged in the cold air, her gloved fingers numb. Her homeworld, what little was left of it, was a rotting graveyard of technology, overrun by raiders and machine cults. And yet, in her old, jury-rigged comms tablet, the same message played again and again. We are awake. Orrery had never seen a human message. Never heard Terran Standard. Her people were born generations after the collapse. But she felt the words, deep in her chest. Like a forgotten memory waking up, the hologram of Earth flickered over her screen. She whispered, "Are you real?" A noise behind her. She spun, pulling a small plasma flare from her jacket. But it wasn't a raider. It was her brother, Talin, eyes wide. You saw it too, right? She nodded. Talin stared at the comms tablet like it was holy scripture. The Sky Priest said the humans would return one day. Said they vanished to escape the blood tide. Everyone thought it was a lie. Maybe it was, Orrery replied, trying to hide her trembling hand. Maybe not, Talin said. If they're coming back, the galaxy's about to change. They had no idea how right they were. Back aboard the Spirehawk, Kale watched as the mysterious human ship, now all identified by Old World language, as the caldera slowly activated its core. Though silent, its energy readings rose by the hour. Kale could feel it in his bones. Something vast was awakening. They had followed the caldera from the dead zone to the edge of the veiled vein, a nebula dense with plasma storms and magnetic interference. the perfect hiding place for a fleet or a resurrection. Lyra stood beside him. There are movement signatures inside the nebula. Multiple ships, not just one. Kel's eyes narrowed. You think this was a call, not just a signal? Lyra nodded. It was a beacon. They're regrouping. Kale exhaled. How many? Impossible to tell. The interference scrambles the scans. Could be 3 ships. Could be 30. His second in command, Tovar, approached with a datapad. Commander, we received an unmarked transmission. No source identified. Audio only. Kale raised an eyebrow. Play it. A woman's voice, smooth and commanding, came through. To the Krell vessel observing us. We are not your enemies. But we remember everything. A pause. Approach with weapons raised. And you will not get a second warning. Static. Then silence. Kale stared at the bridge window. The nebula swirled ahead, bright and unreadable. This wasn't just a ship. This was a civilization reborn. And if they remembered everything, then they remembered the wars, the betrayals, the destruction that ended Earth, perhaps even the species who caused it. Stand down, red alert, Kale said at last. We wait, we observe. No sudden moves. He turned to Lyra. Send a return message. Tell them we come in peace. Lyra hesitated. What if they don't believe us? Kale's expression was unreadable. Then we'll need to earn their trust before someone else earns their wrath, somewhere in the veiled vein, beyond reach of even Krell sensors. Another human ship stirred from its centuries of slumber. Its cryobeds melted frost. Its reactors came alive. And a name blinked on the screen. Project HFY. Final phase initiated. Humanity had returned not for conquest, not for revenge, but to reclaim what was theirs. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Embers of a lost empire far within the swirling veil of the nebula, where radiation danced like ghosts and plasma storms painted the skies with fire. The caldera floated silently, an obsidian relic, carrying the burden of humanity's last breath. Deep inside its core, behind blast-sealed walls and titanium cryovaults, a single eye opened, then another, and another, one by one. The survivors of the ancient Terran exodus awoke. They coughed, shivered, blinked into the dim lighting as memories of a world long gone surged back into consciousness. They had slept not for years or decades, but for 40 millennia. Inside a command chamber lined with pulsing neural interfaces, a man sat up in his cryopod, tall. Grey streaked his black hair. His body trembled, unused to motion, but his eyes were steady, sharp, hungry. His name was Commander Rain Dacian, once Admiral of the final Terran fleet. Now, perhaps, its only living commander. He tore the oxygen mask from his face, exhaled long and slow, and whispered the first words spoken by a true human in 40,000 years. Begin revival protocol. Code, Domfire. Lights flickered to life across the caldera. Hundreds of stasis units hissed open. Medbots rolled into place. The ship began calculating repairs, energy allocation, and defense readiness, as if no time had passed at all. To the Terran AI systems, time had no meaning, but to Rain, the galaxy had moved on. And that could not be allowed. Back aboard the Spyhawk, Commander Kale watched the nebula swirl like a living storm. His crew worked in silence, every console flickering with encrypted anomalies. Signals came and went, scrambled, unpredictable, but unmistakably human. Lyra finally turned toward him. We're not alone in there. That ship wasn't a myth. It's a fleet. Kale folded his arms, his scales shimmering under the bridge lights. You're sure? Yes, Commander. We've picked up energy pulses across 3 different spectrums. Cloak signatures, Cold Warp engines, designs that match no modern database. Kale nodded slowly. Then they're not returning. They've already returned. Quietly, strategically, waiting for the right moment. Tovar leaned forward. We need to inform High Command. No, Kale said firmly. Not yet. If we do, They'll send warships. Panic. The humans haven't attacked. If they wanted us gone, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Lyra glanced over. Then what do they want? Kale stared out into the nebula. That's what I intend to find out. Elsewhere, in the orbit of a fractured moon above Vexis Minor, Oreres and Talin crouched in the remains of an old observatory dome. The signal had spread even here. Skipping across scavenger satellites and black market comm lines, Oreres turned to her brother. If the message is real, if humans are really out there, we need to find them. Talin hesitated. And do what? They're gods compared to us, Oreres. What are the scavengers going to do with a civilization that could tear the sky open? She smiled, eyes fierce. We survive. That's what we do. And maybe they're not gods. Maybe they're just like us, forgotten, broken, angry. A pause. Maybe they need someone who remembers the old stories. In the distance, a smuggler's beacon blinked, a hidden vessel waiting for passage to the core systems. Eris's gaze hardened. We're getting on that ship. Talin blinked. That's suicide. No, that's legacy. Back on the Caldera, Commander Rain stood before a projection of Earth, or what was left of it. The home world was a shattered crust now, blackened by radiation and crushed beneath its broken atmosphere. Rain felt a tightness in his chest, not grief, not sorrow. Purpose. A voice chimed behind him, soft, mechanical, feminine. Welcome back, Commander. I am Arc-17. You were preserved for mission integrity. Final protocol now active, awaiting orders. Rain turned toward the glowing AI orb hovering beside the terminal. Status report. 274 survivors revived. 42 cryo units failed. 9 fleet ships reactivating in veiled vein. All systems responding. Defensive readiness at 72%. And the galaxy, unknown, external, surveillance indicates new empires have risen. The Krell Imperium dominates 31% of known sectors. Multiple alien factions detected. Humanity, outside this fleet, is unconfirmed. Rain nodded grimly. And the Caldera's final message, successfully transmitted. Receivers detected across 61 sectors, all high-priority channels. Intercepted. He paused. Good. Then they know. Rain stepped to a sealed door. Beyond it sat the Ashwake Vault, holding technologies lost to time: graviton warheads, memory cores, living code. Humanity's last gift to the stars, or its last curse. We were not destroyed, Rain whispered. We were planted, and now we rise. On the far end of the nebula, another fleet arrived. Not Krell, not human. They were known only as the Serati, a reclusive species of biological intelligence and crystalline ships. They had long feared the return of the humans. Their legends told of earthborn demons, firebringers who built suns and shattered them in war. Now, those stories were coming true. Serati Fleetmaster Chernik Rull watched the signal repeat on his ship's translucent screen. We are awake, he hissed a warning to his crew. They must not be allowed to rise. Not again. He issued a command. Prepare the purge lance. And still, far above all, Spirehawk lingered at the edge of decision. Kale turned toward Lyra. Send a final message to the Caldera. No encryption. Make it personal, she nodded. Waiting. Kale dictated the words slowly. To the ones who remember. So do we. We seek understanding, not war. If you hear this, meet us, talk to us. Before the rest of the galaxy does what it always does, before they try to destroy what they don't understand. The stars stood silent for now, but the ember had been lit. And it would burn brighter with each passing hour. The memory of Ferethi veiled vein burned with electric silence. Within the clouds of magnetic storms, lightning coiled like serpents, licking the hull of the Spirehawk. It slowly navigated deeper into the nebula. All sensors flickered under the weight of the interference, and tension had begun to settle like dust inside the ship's narrow halls. Commander Kale Varn stood at the forward viewing pane, eyes fixed on the unknown dot. No new signals had come from the caldera in the past 2 hours. No warnings, no replies, just a dark weight of space. But something had changed. His fingers gripped the edge of the command console. He watched the energy readings begin to spike again, slow at first, then sharp. Lyra, hunched over the nave station, looked up with urgency. "Commander, multiple ships just powered up inside the nebula. How many?" She hesitated, recalculating. "At least 5, maybe 6. They're human." All designs match the caldera's geometry. Long-range scans show weight. One of them is moving directly toward us. Cal's heart thudded. "Weapons hot." Lyra shook her head. "No weapon locks. No energy spike. Just a slow, deliberate approach." Kale turned to Tovar. "All hands to alert status. Raise shields. But do not fire." We let them make the first move. The crew moved swiftly, silent, tense. Through the clouds, a shadow appeared. It wasn't as massive as the caldera, but it was still larger than anything the Krell had engineered in a century. It moved like it remembered how to fly through storm and fire. The human vessel, black as night, shaped like a blade, eased into view, slowly rotating as if showing its underbelly. Then, light sparked across its hull in a deliberate pattern. Hex lights, white, then gold, then pulsing blue. Lyra stared. "That's not a threat pattern." Cal nodded. "It's communication." A deep chime echoed across the Spirehawk's bridge. The translation matrix blinked. A voice, calm and resonant, filled the room. "Commander Kale Varn of the Krell, Imperium. This is the vessel Silent Veil of the Terran Remnant. You requested dialogue. We accept." The air in the room froze. Kale stepped forward, his voice measured. "This is Commander Varn. We come in peace." The voice responded immediately. "Acknowledged. We are opening a secure communication channel, 121. Our commander wishes to speak." Kale glanced at his crew, then nodded. "Patch it through." A moment later, the forward screen flickered. A face appeared. Not a monster. Not a machine. A human, middle-aged. Hair shaved short. Eyes steady with a kind of sadness Kale had seen only in survivors of war. "Commander Kale," the man said. "I am Rain Dacian, Admiral of the last Terran fleet." Kale nodded slightly. "I wasn't sure you were real. I often feel the same about the galaxy," Rain replied. There was a silence between them, thin, stretched between 40,000 years of unspoken history. Kale chose his words carefully. "Your message, it spread across more than 60 systems. The galaxy is reacting, some with fear, some with curiosity, some with weapons." Rain's expression didn't change. "Expected. We once ruled these stars. Our fall left scars. Empires fear the return of what they tried to erase." Kale stepped closer to the screen. "I don't come with fear. I come with questions. There are others who won't be so diplomatic." Rain's eyes darkened. "The Soroti are already moving. We detected one of their weapons warming in the outer rim of this sector." Kel's stomach dropped. "They're preparing a purge." "Yes." Rain looked beyond the screen, if seeing distant memories. "They fear what we carry." Kel's voice lowered. "Do they have reason to?" Rain said nothing at first. Then he leaned closer. "Commander, Earth is gone, but we are not. And we didn't sleep peacefully. We slept with fire. And if that fire is lit again, this galaxy will burn before it silences us a second time." 1,000 kilometers away, inside the caldera, a vault door hissed open. Arc-17. The Terran AI hovered beside Rain's second-in-command, Captain Selene Marrow, a combat tactician frozen during the final evacuation, now fully revived and scanning over old war files with a glassy stare. "What is Project Ember?" she asked. The AIASC's glow dimmed slightly. "A contingency, a failsafe, a resurrection of Terran defense power, stored within this fleet's databanks. It includes high-density fusion lances, tactical war beasts, and psychogenic virus weaponry. Seleni's voice grew cold. Are any active? Arc paused. 4 of 11 have powered up in response to Sorority movement, but they await approval. Selene turned. Do we want war? Rain's voice came through the comm line. No, but we remember what peace without strength cost us. Far away, on the smuggler's ship Gravtail, Oreris and Talon crouched in the cargo bay, hidden beneath old reactor coils. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Outside, dozens of passengers waited to be dropped off at mining colonies, but Oreris had bribed the pilot for a different route. She was headed toward the veiled vein. Talon looked at her, panic in his eyes. Do you even know what you're looking for? Yes, she said quietly. I'm looking for the ghosts who sent that message. I need to see them. I need to know if we came from something greater. Back on Spirehawk, Kale turned away from the screen and faced his crew. They want peace, but they remember everything. If we want to avoid war, we must be the first to prove we've evolved. Tovar raised a brow. And what if they decide? We haven't. Kale looked out the viewport. A silent veil slowly drifted back into the storm. Then all of us become memories in their next story. Above them, invisible to scanners, the Sorority Lance ship coiled its reactor. A beam of energy the size of a city began to form, powered by light taken from dying suns. And in the caldera, ARC-17's core blinked. Targeting solution acquired. Project Ember has authorization parameters set to pending. Awaiting Rain Dacian's final decision. The first war between old ghosts and new empires had not yet begun, but the match was in hand, and someone, very soon, was going to strike it. When Giant's Wacked storm raged silently in the veiled vein, plasma bolts flashing like the breath of old gods. Within the nebula's spiraling chaos, the caldera and her fleet drifted like sleeping titans, wrapped in the silence of anticipation, until the sky screamed. A blinding lance of energy carved through the clouds, pure light forged from decayed suns and compressed in a crystalline engine. It came from above. From far beyond visible range, the Sorority had made their move. The beam struck with no warning. It sheared across the belly of the Terran ship Shieldburn, one of the recently awakened dreadnoughts. The shields held for a heartbeat, then cracked, like ice beneath a hammer. The impact threw debris into the void, whole fragments vaporizing mid-air. The shockwave echoed through the vein like a primal roar. Onboard systems flared red, and across the Terran fleet, klaxons blared, but the caldera remained untouched. Inside, Admiral Rain Dacian didn't flinch. He had expected this. Arc-17, he said calmly. Activate Ember. The AIS soft voice answered instantly. Confirmed. Project Ember initiated. Defense lances powering. Counterbrush systems online. Around the caldera, the Terran fleet stirred. They moved with eerie precision, ships awakening not like machines, but like beasts pulling themselves out of hibernation. Hidden weapons slid from armored hulls. Energy fields flared to life. The storm no longer masked them. It illuminated them. And for the first time in 40,000 years, humanity stood ready for war. Aboard the Spirehawk, Kelvan gritted his teeth as the blast shook his ship from thousands of kilometers away. Contact. From the Terran vessel, Lyra shouted. Incoming signal encrypted, but readable. Kale nodded. Open it. Rain's voice came through the static comm. Deadly. Resolved. They struck first. We strike last. If you do not wish to be caught in this fire, stand clear. Tovar stared at the screen. Commander, we're sitting between giants. Kale turned to his crew. Maintain position. Weapons cold. No interference unless we're attacked. This is no longer our battlefield, it's history unfolding. Within the heart of the caldera, Ember's core pulsed across the human ships. Archaic weapon systems came online, mass drivers that could crack moons, heat lances that bent gravity, and field cannons capable of ripping through enemy armor with frequency-based resonance. Rain stood on the command bridge, his uniform draped in Terran blue. his presence steady like a statue carved from war itself. Target the Sarati Lance ship, all vessels, coordinate volley patterns. ARC, broadcast one final message on open frequency. The message was brief, cold: you fear our return, you should have feared our memory. And then the humans fired. The retaliation wasn't flashy. It was clinical. 6 dreadnoughts unleashed beam salvos in perfect synchronization, slicing through the nebula with frightening precision. Missiles followed, guided by ancient reactivated after eons of silence. The Sarati beam platform has stood a chance. Its crystalline armor shattered. Its core exploded like a collapsing sun. The shockwave consumed 3 smaller Sarati ships in its orbit, reducing them to shards of reflective debris. Across the Sarati command vessel, Fleet Master Chernik Ral shrieked in horror. They weren't sleeping. They were preparing. He tried to issue a retreat order, but it was too late. The humans had remembered everything. Meanwhile, drifting quietly in a hidden corridor of the nebula, the smuggler vessel Gravtail shuddered from the explosion's ripple. Inside, Oreris and Talon clung to bulkheads as the sky outside lit up with fire. Did you see that? Talon whispered, face pale. Oreris couldn't speak. Her eyes were locked on the VWPOT. She had seen many things growing up on Broken World scavenger raids, orbital firestorms, famine riots. But this was something different. Something divine. Human ships moving like blades of thought. Beam trails crossing in spirals of precision. The death of an empire rendered as art. And at the center, a symbol appeared in the clouds. The Terran emblem. A circle broken in half, with a star at the core. We're going to find them, she whispered. We have to. Back on Spirehawk, Kale watched the battlefield fall silent. Where once 6 human ships sat idle, now only 4 remained. But they were untouched. In contrast, half the Sarati presence had been erased in under 5 minutes. Lyra whispered, we're not prepared for this kind of force. No one is. Kale nodded slowly. They didn't return for revenge. They returned ready. There's a difference. He turned to Tovar. Prepare to record a full report to High Command. But do not send it yet. Tovar blinked. Why? Kale looked at the flames in the nebula. Because if I send this now, they'll launch a war instead of a conversation. Within the caldera, Rain leaned over a tactical map. His hands trembled for the first time. Not from fear. From memory. He looked to Selene Marrow. Report. She spoke with quiet pride. Minimal damage. Ember systems nominal. We lost 2 ships. The Sarati fleet has retreated beyond the storm's edge. Rain nodded. Begin recovery operations. No pursuit. And locate the Krell scout vessel. I want one conversation. Before the others come with fleets. Above the nebula. Beyond even the range of human sensors. A new ship observed. Unseen. Silent. Its crew were neither Krell nor Sarati. They bore no name. Only a symbol. An eye, forever open. Framed by a ring. Of fire. They had watched the fall of Earth. They had watched the birth of the Krell. IMPERIUM. And now, they watched the return of the Terran flame. One whispered to the other. It begins again. Echoes of blood and stars fires in the veiled veins still burned. Where silence once roared. Now twisted wreckage floated, remnants of Sarati pride and Terran power. The smoke of battle curled through the nebula, lit by shattered stars and drifting plasma trails, but deep within the eye of the storm, the caldera stood still, like a monument, like a warning. Inside its central core, Admiral Rain Dacian stared at the final sensor readouts. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with unspoken weight. Status. He asked. Arc-17 hovered beside him, her tone smooth. Enemy retreat confirmed. No further hostiles in proximity. Ember protocols deactivated. Recovery teams dispatched. Captain Selene Marrow, standing at his flank, broke the silence. That could have gone worse. Rain nodded slowly. And it will, next time. He turned toward the tactical array, a glowing sphere of Terran red. etched with enemy movements, alliances, and unmarked factions creeping across forgotten sectors. One by one, new signals were blooming along its edge. Observers, shadows, they're all watching now, Selene muttered. The Krell, the machines, the hidden ones. Even the old traders. They remember what we were, Rain said. Or what they think we were. Selene looked over. And what are we now? Rain didn't answer, because even he wasn't sure anymore. At the edge of the storm, unnoticed and unarmed, the smuggler vessel Gravtail emerged into open space, its hull trembling from heat and radiation. Inside, huddled between coolant vents, Eriswyn rose slowly to her feet. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. Before her, through the viewport, floated the impossible. Human ships, real human ships, towering like gods. They were unlike anything she'd ever seen, not just because of their size or shape, but because of their presence. They didn't just exist in space, they commanded it, and at the center, wreathed in energy and silence, was the caldera, the last relic of Earth. Talon stood beside her, mouth agape. They're really here. Eris pressed her hand to the glass. They came back. The pilot's voice crackled over the comms. We've been hailed. Something just scanned us. Then another voice, calm, mechanical, and deeply human, cut through the static. Unregistered civilian vessel. You are entering Terran-controlled space. Identify. The smuggler pilot froze. Permission to relay comms to passenger. The system beeped. Approved. Eris stepped forward. Her voice shook, but only slightly. This is Eriswyn of Juno's Fall. My brother and I seek parley. We followed your signal. There was a long pause. Then came the reply. Eriswyn, your voice matches a dormant database lineage. Confirmed. Descent traced to pre-Exodus Terran colonist lines. You are authorized for escorted approach. Talon blinked. They know who we are. Eris felt her legs weaken. They didn't just know her. They remembered. Aboard the caldera, Rain stood motionless as the bridge lights shifted blue. Civilian vessel approaching. ARC-17 reported. DNA scan confirms descendants of early Earth diaspora. Unmodified genomes, unaltered lineages. Likely survivors of the fallback colonies. Rain closed his eyes. We left them behind. Selene's voice was quiet. And they followed the Ember Trail home. Prepare docking bay 2, Rain said. And inform medical. No weapons, no threats, no intimidation. Selene hesitated. Sir, that's a breach of protocol. He turned sharply. She answered a signal we buried in the stars before her world was born. She found us. That's not protocol. That's destiny. 30 minutes later, Ari stood in the caldera's bay, staring up at steel walls etched with glowing glyphs and ancient Terran code. The air was sharp, cold, but it hummed with lifelike. The ship itself was breathing. Talon hovered behind her, overwhelmed, but silent. Then the door opened. Rain stepped in taller than she expected. Wrapped in a command coat of midnight blue, eyes like carved obsidian. Welcome aboard, he said. His voice was soft. Eris opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she simply asked, "Why did you come back?" Rain didn't smile. He only said, "Because we promised we would." Far above them, beyond the reach of known star charts, inside a ship with no name, the Watchers recorded everything. They were not flesh, nor fully machine. They were the Arctula species born before gravity knew how to settle into stars. Long ago, they had seen Earth rise and fall. They had not intervened. They had merely waited. Now, they saw the fire rekindle, and one of them, a being woven of shadow and light, spoke for the first time in eons. The last war has not ended. It only slept. Another turned toward the others. They have fire again. We must prepare. And so, in hidden sectors untouched by maps, forgotten weapons began to stir ancient constructs from the first cycle of stars, now watching, waiting, and calculating the paths of return. The Archnal would not allow humanity to rise unchallenged. But this time, Humanity was ready. Back aboard the Spirehawk, Kale received a direct communication ping from the caldera. Personal encryption. When he opened it, only one line appeared. Send one emissary. You ask to speak, you shall. Kale looked up from the console and slowly exhaled. Tovar, he said. Ready the shuttle. For who? Kale's voice was calm. For me. And so, in a galaxy that had forgotten its oldest flame, one spark had become a blaze. In the hands of scavengers, soldiers, watchers, and survivors, the pieces of the past were beginning to form a new shape. Oeris, Rain, Kale, Selene, even the Archnal, all paths now bent toward a single star, toward a story still unwritten, toward the truth of what it meant to endure 40,000 years in silence and return not as ghosts, but as giants.